Hello. It's Rebecca. I eat books. Today is Monday. So I think I'm gonna start a little vlog here today. Ready? Okay, here we go. Vlog, let's go. I am working from home today. I finished this morning the Gwendolyn Riley book, First Love. It was wild, angry, it was good. I recommend. I was thinking what I'm gonna read next, and I had a little idea for a vlog. I thought that this week I would pick 3 of my favorite all-time books that I read before I started BookTube, so I've never really gotten to talk about them that much on here. I want to have the chance to talk about them in depth, but also I'm curious to see if they hold up, if they're still favorites. I'm pretty excited. Let's see what I chose. Maggie Nelson's The Argonauts. This book changed my life, and I'm really excited to read it again. My first Maggie Nelson, I read it pretty soon after it came out. Copyright 2015. I think I read this in 2016. I read it as part of my book club back when I lived in California. I found it pretty challenging, and I'm curious to see if I still find it to be as challenging, if I still find it to be as mind-blowing. This is where my love affair with Maggie all began, so we're gonna revisit that. If you forced me to choose a favorite book of all time, the answer would probably be different on a day-to-day basis, but at least occasionally it would be Housekeeping by Marilynne Robinson. I love this book so much. I read it a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago. And lastly, I thought for sure I need to reread some Ferrante. The Neapolitan quartets are very important to me, love them. Very important to my life as an adult reader. Some of the first books that I really fell in love with reading again as an adult post-grad school. I think that I'm gonna read the second book in the series, which is The Story of a New Name, book 2. Because this is my vlog and I get to make the rules. These are the 3 books I'm gonna read this week. If I don't love them as much as I used to, it's gonna be a really sad week. Okay, going back to work, I think I'm gonna start with this one, and I'll report back. Hi, it is Monday afternoon. Let me put you down. Hi, I finished working mostly for the day. And my friend Alex just got back from a bluegrass festival in Kansas, and she asked me to stop by and bring her some COVID tests we have lying around. So I'm gonna run over to her apartment, drop these off. Her apartment is right next to a dog park that I used to take this guy to. I'm talking about you. So I think I'm gonna bring him, drop these off, and then bring him over to the park and bring the book and do a little bit of reading. When I get back, I'm gonna make dinner, and while I do that, I'll tell you all about how it's going. I'm gonna make eggplant for dinner. Hello. I'm home from the dog park. We had a wonderful time. We got a little caught in the rain. Now I'm working on dinner. I'm making like a stewed eggplant thing, and then I also have some squash and some cauliflower. I'm just gonna roast it up because it's Monday and I'll eat it throughout the week. Okay. Story of a New Name. I'm about 75 pages in. Should I talk about the plot? I guess. Not everybody's read this, right? Okay. Neapolitan novels. There are 4 of them. Elena Ferrante, famous quartet. It's about a friendship between 2 people, Lenu, who is our narrator, and Leela, who's her best friend. They grow up in Naples, Italy. They're born in 1944. Life is very hard. The first book, which I have read, I've read all of them, but for this week, for our revisiting favorites, I'm reading the second one. The first one covers them at very young, starting their friendship, and then going to Leela's wedding day. The thing that makes these two women, these two girls special is that, among other things, they're extremely smart. Brings them together, and also something that they compete around as young people in school in order to save her family's shoemaking business. Leela, who's extremely bright and a fantastic writer, drops out of school, doesn't go to middle school, finishes elementary, and that's it. Marries as a young teenager. The first book ends at her wedding day. She is given a prized pair of shoes to her new husband, and he has given them to her arch nemesis, who is one of the Solaro brothers in the neighborhood. That is a cliffhanger that the first book ends on. You know right away that this marriage is off to a rocky start. This book starts with Lenu reacting to the fact that her best friend, who they've done everything together over the years, has now dropped out of school and married. Lenu is having a little bit of a crisis of conscience. My best friend, who I've done all this with my whole life, is now married. She's dropped out of school. Should I do that? What should I do with my life? Am I missing out? She's got FOMO. Meanwhile, we see that Leela's life is actually extremely difficult. You know, Lenu is struggling with jealousy and envy. Meanwhile, from the reader's perspective, we can see more than 15, 16-year-old Lenu can see, and we know that Leela has it much worse off. There's a really gruesome rape scene on her wedding night with her new husband. Generally speaking, I had forgotten how just brutal this book is, especially with the violence against women. I knew it, but rereading it is hard. Lenu is also dating somebody. He's a real dick. He's a real gaslighting, manipulative jerk. She has love for another man, the poet's son. The amount of compulsory heterosexuality in this book is extreme. I had forgotten about Ferrante's style of writing. Cinematic. Not much happens. The book is like 500 pages long. She is very detailed in her descriptions. The emotionality is just very clear for both of these women who have nobody but each other. They are each other's closest person. There's so much unsaid between them. The tension is very visible to the reader. And that's what I've got so far. I'm enjoying it. Is it rocking my world? I'm only 75 pages in. I think when I read it, it rocked my world so hard because I was not used to seeing female anger on the page. And I have read a lot of female anger since then. But I still think this is sort of the OG and it's gonna stack up. But we'll see. We shall see. All right, I'm gonna finish making dinner and then I'm gonna show you what I made for dinner. And then I'll keep reading. We have dinner. There's my stewy eggplant. Put some fried eggs on top. Serve it with pita and yogurt and mint and some almonds. And then there's some roasted veggies for the rest of the week. Ta-da! Good morning. It is Tuesday. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. I'm about to get on my bicycle and head to campus, to the office, to work for the day. I had a nice workout this morning. Things are good. Ferrante. Here's what I've been thinking about Ferrante. She's so good at capturing the just pure insidiousness of the patriarchy. Leela and Lenu, our two main characters, are often described, like in reviews and stuff, as frenemies. Clearly they are soulmates. Their love for each other is so deep and intense, and admiration and care. The tension that comes between them, the hostilities that come between them are by design. These two women are the smartest, most capable people in Naples, in their town. If the patriarchy were not able to sow division between them, think about how fucking powerful they would be. They would own the city. So of course, by design, patriarchy keeps women from being in community with each other fully. It makes them feel as if their purposes are at odds so that they don't unite their power. It's so intelligently depicted here. And frustratingly, whenever they're at odds with each other, you just want to shake them and be like, don't you see that you want the same things? So that's what I'm thinking about. I'm about 100 pages in. Okay, I'm gonna go to work. Love you, nerds. I'm on a little lunchtime walk on campus. I know that it's the Wyndham Campbell Festival right now, which is like a annual literary prize hosted here at Yale. I think one of the recipients this year is Margot Jefferson, so that's cool. So I thought I would walk over to cross campus and see if there are any events or anything going on.
Yeah, so here in the tent, there's stuff going on throughout.
Okay, I stopped by the tent. I got the program, a free tote. Last night was the opening lecture with Natasha Trethaway. There's a lecture about Langston Hughes. Oh, and Yian Lee is going to be here. She won in 2020. Her book came out today. I think today is her pub date. Oh yeah, and her book launch is at noon today. Free signed copies. Okay. It's pretty cool. I'm home from work. I have nothing to share except that my colleague brought me peppers from her garden. Gonna fry those up tonight or tomorrow night. I'm gonna walk my dog and read my book and drink some tea and ignore the world. Hi, it's Thursday evening. I just made myself a little lox plate for dinner. She pretty, right? I realized I haven't talked to you all day. It was a busy day. I got the house in order because we're gonna go out of town this weekend. We're gonna go to Vermont. I'm just about finished with Ferrante. I have so much to say, but my dinner's gonna get cold. So I'll talk to you about it later. Okay, bye. Hello. We're on the road. We're headed to Vermont for the weekend. I'm hoping for some good leaf peepage. There's a dog panting in my ear. Gonna go insane. We're gonna hike Mount Mansfield tomorrow. We're gonna go to the Underhill Fall Harvest Festival. We're dog sitting for the sweetest pup named Quinn. It's gonna be great. I finished Story of a New Name. It feels sort of not important, but let's talk about the plot of the book. We have these two best friends, Elena, who's our narrator, and Leela. The story starts when they're teenagers and Leela has just gotten married. It follows through to early 20s. In that time, Leela is married to this asshole, violent rapist. Lenu is still in school. Lenu has this privilege that Leela doesn't have to continue in school. Leela goes to work at her husband's grocery store. Pivotal part of the book happens in a summer after Leela has had a miscarriage. Her doctor instructs her to go swim and take in the sun for her health. She brings her sister-in-law and Lenu with her, and Lenu is excited because the boy that she loves, Nino, is going to be there too on Ischia. I don't know how to say it, but I know I want to go there. They go to spend the summer there. Lenu's in love with Nino, and it turns out that Leela, the married one, begins this affair with Nino that ultimately ends with her leaving her husband, getting pregnant with Nino's child, and then Nino leaving her. Now she is without income, without education. She is pregnant. She has a child, eventually, a boy who she names after her brother. She goes, over the course of the book, this financially privileged place that has brought her family out of poverty to running away for her life because she's worried that her husband is going to kill her, is now working this very dangerous, inhumane work in a sausage factory. That's where it leaves Leela. Lenu, on the other hand, leaves Naples as well, but she goes to Pisa and has a full scholarship to study, becomes engaged to a professor who is the son of a very well-off family of academics. The conceit of the book is that we're hearing this story from both perspectives because Lenu has been given by Leela a box of her writing, and we find out that Leela has been keeping this obsessive journal her whole life in this discipline of writing. It's very clear that both women are hell-bent, are struggling to get out of their neighborhood in Naples, to escape the violence and the poverty. And they're going about it in two different ways. Lenu is very outward, interested in success in a classic, competitive way. She's very conscious of how she is perceived. She is very aware that she is the daughter of uneducated workers who has escaped this neighborhood, and Leela is this incredibly internal person. She is writing journals that no one will see. She keeps things within. She escapes inward in order to create a separation between her and her environment. I talked about this earlier, but they're both envious of the other person. There's a part in this book where Leela makes a bet with Lenu in order to force her to get all A's in school, because Leela's aware that that's not an opportunity that she had. So there's this sense that they are incomplete without the other one. At the end of the book, Lenu publishes a novel about their upbringing in Naples. It is her work, her desire to be known, that brings that work out, but she talks about how it's so much embedded and inspired by this story that we hear about in the first book that Leela wrote as a child, which was called The Blue Fairy. This art, the meaning in art that's been made out of this violent, impoverished upbringing is only possible because of the combination of both of these women's skills and contributions. And similarly, the book that we are reading is only possible because Leela has kept all these diaries in a desire to record inwardly and personally, and it's only being put out there into the world for us to read because Lenu is interested in recording it for the world. I love that together they're two ways of create art and meaning out of struggle. Did the book hold up for me? Yes, it's so good. Ferrante is so good. Her writing is so good. It's wonderful. I mean, did it break my brain the way it did the first time? No. But I loved it. It was a wonderful few days to spend back with Ferrante. It does kind of make me want to keep going with the series, but not today. Today we continue our adventure of reading favorites. So, have the Argonauts and Housekeeping left that I picked. I'm going to start with Housekeeping, just because I feel like it. Alright, I'll check in. Once we get to Vermont, I'll show you my friend Allie's beautiful home, beautiful dog, and how annoying was the panting in the background of this video. Good morning. It's Saturday. I'm out walking some dogs, and then we're gonna go hike. We're gonna go hike Mount Mansfield, the highest peak in Vermont. I've done no reading, but I'm having a wonderful fall weekend. Having a really nice time. This is Quinn, by the way, and she's an angel. Have a beautiful Saturday, everyone.
The shadows are cool.
Good morning. It is Sunday. Drinking some coffee, starting the day. I'm still at my friend Allie's house in Vermont, dog sitting. Quinn is right there, directing. A great day yesterday. We hiked. It was beautiful. It was really, the conditions on the ridge were serious. We were definitely underprepared. We were those assholes who do not look prepared for the hike. But we made it. It was great. And then we went and had lunch at the Underhill Town Harvest Festival. And I bought lots of apple cider donuts, a pumpkin muffin. And we came back here and took care of the dogs and hung out. I made dinner. Then we went out for a maple creamy Vermont delicacy. Today's kind of a gray, rainy day, which is perfect. Take the dogs for a little hike, and then I need to go to my favorite yarn store while we're in town in Jeffersonville, Vermont. I've got my mind set on making a sweater vest this fall. My friend Idle Hands on Instagram sent me the perfect pattern. I knew I was gonna do this trip, and I love this yarn store, so I've been waiting to come here to pick out the yarn. And then there's a bathtub upstairs that's really calling my name on this gray day. So that's Sunday. Also yesterday I did read about 70 pages of Housekeeping. It is so good. It's been a really long time since I read this, but it's so good. Every sentence is amazing. I underlined some. It's kind of funny, which is like not a word I would usually use to describe Marilynne Robinson, but it is. Her characters are just over the edge of satire. She's making a little bit fun of them. So here's the premise. We have two sisters, Lucille and Ruth. Lucille, the older one, and technically she is the narrator, although so much of the book is written in first person plural, like we and us, referring to the two of them, which is a wild choice. Definitely something I wouldn't have noticed on first reading almost 10 years ago, but now it's really obvious to me. This book is so much about sisterhood and kinship. There are no male characters. Again, not something I probably noticed 10 years ago, but now it's like the best thing in the world. Okay, so we have these two sisters. The story starts with generations before they were born. They had a grandfather. There was a man who would one day be their grandfather. Got on a train and said, I want to go out west to the mountains. And they brought him to a little town called Fingerbone. We don't know where Fingerbone is. It's probably Idaho, would be my guess. It's very cold. It's always cold. The town is really centered by this lake, plays a very crucial part of the story. Grandfather gets a job on the railroad. He marries the woman that becomes Ruth and Lucille's grandmother. They have 3 daughters. And one day he has a tragic train accident and the train goes off the bridge into the lake in Fingerbone. And the very next day, the lake freezes over for winter. So he's trapped forever beneath it. The grandmother raises her 3 daughters and they have a blissful few years, all beautiful women, female family time. And then in pretty rapid succession, all 3 daughters leave her. One becomes a missionary in a foreign country. One runs off and gets married, elopes. And the third one goes to visit her sister who has eloped and doesn't come back. The one who elopes has 2 girls, which become Ruth and Lucille. They never know their father. She elopes, they have the 2 girls, and then he's out of the picture forever. One day their mother comes back to Fingerbone for the first time since leaving, drops the kids off at the grandmother's house, drives her car into the lake and kills herself. So now the 2 kids are being raised by their grandmother. This goes on for a couple years until she passes away, and she leaves these 2 children in the care of her sisters. So now we're at 3 generations of sisters, and they are bumbling fools. Very funny. They're very afraid of everything. Do not have the emotional capacity to handle it if the girls cough. And the humor is very dry and deadpan. Like the first day, the great aunts show up to take care of the kids. They look at each other and they're like, there are 4 hours until bedtime. And then the next sentence says, and an hour later, they put us to bed. Finally, they call for the 3rd daughter. Not the one who's the missionary, not the one who's dead, but Sylvie is her name, the aunt of these two girls, and they basically call her to Fingerbone. She hasn't been back since she was a kid, and they leave and say these two children will be better suited in your care. Sylvie is a total character too, flighty, and we don't really know what she's been up to or what her deal is. She arrives right at the end of winter, beginning of spring. Two great aunts leave, and then they're in this home. The lake melts, all the snow from the winter melts, and the house floods. They're just hanging out in this house, and it talks about how when you close a door, there are ripples of waves through the house. I'm sure that is a biblical reference. I mean, I know about floods in the Bible. It's great. It's truly a joy. I cannot wait to read it in the bathtub later. Let me read you some sentences. I know it's like kind of annoying when people do this, but she's so good. Her sentences are really delicious. This is about the time right after the grandfather dies in the train accident and how those few years with her three daughters are blissful. If heaven was to be this world purged of disaster and nuisance, and if this world purged and this life unconsuming could be thought of as world and life restored to their proper natures, it is no wonder that 5 serene, eventless years lulled my grandmother into forgetting what she should never have forgotten. Come on. Okay, here's one more. One more, I promise. This perfect quiet had settled into their house after the death of their father. That event had troubled the very medium of their lives. Time and air and sunlight bore wave and wave of shock, until all the shock was spent, and time and space and light grew still again, and nothing seemed to tremble, and nothing seemed to lean. And the dear ordinary had healed as seamlessly as an image on water. It's really good, and I stand by it being funny. All right, I'm gonna have a really cozy Vermont fall day now. I'm gonna also obviously turn the camera around so you can see Quinn. I know what you're here for. Say good morning, Quinn. Say hello, I'm the most beautiful girl in the world. We came back from Vermont yesterday. We had the most lovely time in Vermont. Also, I think I forgot to tell you that on Friday we were eating dinner. Actually, we were having drinks at a little wine bar in downtown Burlington called Daedalus. And Adrienne Lenker, the lead singer of Big Thief, walked in, and I went up and shook her hand and told her I loved her. Okay, just need to get that out there. Yesterday was Monday. We drove back from Vermont. My aunt and uncle were here waiting for us, and we celebrated a little Rosh Hashanah together. We ate some apples and honey. We hugged. It was beautiful. They spent the night. They left this morning. I've been working today, but I need to check in to tell you I finished Housekeeping, and it is so good. Is it the greatest book ever written? Talk about a book that held up to my love from the first reading. Wow. Wow. Maybe the greatest book ever written. There's so much to talk about. Where do I start? Last time I checked in, I talked about how the two sisters are this one entity in this really beautiful way. Their odd aunt, Sylvie, has just come to take care of them. So it becomes clear that Sylvie is what they call a transient. She rides the trains, she has no home, she has no husband, even though she's been saying she does. This obsession with riding the trains makes a lot of sense considering that her father died in a train accident. Once it becomes clear that she is not meant to sit still, to have a home, to be stable, there becomes a cleave between the two sisters, Ruth and Lucille, which is the real tragedy of the book. And suddenly it goes from we, the first person plural, to I, the first person singular, and it really becomes Ruth's story. Lucille leaves. She says, I'm not gonna be this type of person. I'm gonna be a traditional home keeper. And she goes to her home ec teacher and asks her to adopt her, essentially. That leaves Lucille alone. She's lost her companion in the world, and she's left with Sylvie. It becomes really clear that home, house, is just a metaphor for intimate companionship, family, friendship. There's a great metaphor at one point in the book. She says, having a friend or sister is like being inside a lit house at night. Other people can see you, but you don't notice them. Something like that. It's really beautiful. So at this point, our last remaining relationship of this family has been destroyed, and there really is no family left. Spoiler alerts here. Lucille, Sylvie run off. They burn down the grandmother's house, walk across the bridge, leaving everyone in the town of Fingerbone to assume that they've been drowned, that they've died in the same lake where Ruth's mother and Lucille's father would have died. They've just escaped, and they're entering a life of transience and riding the trains, which does leave you to ask, to wonder if either of the other two generations also faked their death in the lake and are also transient people. It's definitely a book about identity and figuring out who you are, and if who you are is a stay put kind of person or a keep moving, riding the train kind of person. There's also tons of biblical references. I mean, our narrator, our main character's name is Ruth. There's floods, there's fire. It's really, truly phenomenal. God, greatest book of all time. There's nothing else to say. I could read it 100,000 times and find more things and more things to talk about. Wow, Marilynne Robinson, amazing. Now I'm gonna read my last book of this little vlog, which is Argonauts by Maggie Nelson. I'll report back. Okay, I have to go keep working now. Bye. Hello from editing Rebecca. I've never done one of these editing cameo cut-ins before. I'm a real YouTuber now. This is where the sound goes from bad to nothing. Apparently the mic on the headphones I'm wearing is not functioning in this scene, so I'm gonna do some really bad dubbing of my own voice over myself talking here. Sorry. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm sorry. Okay, so I start by saying hi. It's Wednesday morning. I'm just leaving the gym. And then this is where I think I tell you that I'm sitting outside the dentist, waiting to get my teeth cleaned. I'm reading the Argonauts, clearly. And I'm also knitting a pair of socks. Look how cute. Look, that's just the very beginning. I've made a lot of progress since then. Look at my thoughtful face. I'm about to say something really insightful about the Argonauts, and it's not going to get captured. I think what I'm saying here is how struck I am by how romantic and lovey this book is. I think that in my memory, this book was really heavily grounded in theory and memoir, and I'd forgotten how much it is truly a love story. I was feeling struck here on my dentist steps about how sweet it was. Alright, that was weird. I promise it gets better after I get my teeth cleaned. Okay, bye! My teeth are clean. My gums are perfect, just so you guys know. Got my goodie bag. Alright, gonna go home and actually do some work now. Good morning! Morning! Let's chat. I'm gonna put you down. I'm gonna have a sit. Hi! It's Thursday. It's Thursday. I am wearing new pants that I bought in Vermont last weekend. They're wrinkly. I'm getting ready to get on my bicycle and go to work, but I wanted to check in. I finished the Argonauts. Oh, it's so good. Of all the books that I read this week in my revisiting favorites, this is the one I was most worried about not standing up, and it really did for me. Come for me if you disagree. Like, God, I loved it. A beautiful love story. I loved it. Okay, The Argonauts is a memoir in which Maggie Nelson talks about falling in love with their partner, Harry Dodge, and then simultaneously becoming pregnant with their son, Iggy, while Harry Dodge is undergoing testosterone shots and chest surgery to transition. Both of their physical bodies are undergoing extreme transition periods, and the reference of the Argonauts is to the boat, the Argo. The people on the boat are the Argonauts. Over time, every inch of the boat was replaced, but the boat remains the Argo. For those who haven't read it, it intersperses a lot of theory, and then she cites the reference to the theory in the margin. In italics, this paragraph starts, "What exactly is lost to us when words are wasted?" And then on the side it says Anne Carson, so it's attributing that to Anne Carson. You're kind of low. I feel like I'm hunching. Let's try this. Okay. When I first read this book many years ago, I was intimidated by all of those references. Now I definitely know more of them. I read this pretty soon after graduating from grad school. I never took a women or gender studies class in any academic setting unfortunately. So I had not encountered many or all of these people. And it is true that now I have read a couple Anne Carson books. I have read a couple Eileen Myles books, but I haven't read everyone in this book by a long shot. I haven't even heard of all these people. I was gonna list for you a name that just popped up that I haven't heard of, but maybe I should be embarrassed. I don't know how well known this person is. Okay, it was Dodie Bellamy. I don't know who that is. I'm sorry. So it is true that I have more access to these references than I did when I first read it, but I'm also just a much more confident reader. I have the ability now to be confident in myself that I am understanding the book and making the inferences and understandings that are intended for me. I think when I first read this book, I thought, if I don't get every reference, I'm a big old dummy, and everyone who's reading this book gets every reference, and I am lost in the sauce. And that is not true. It was really nice to revisit a book that had been intimidating to me on first read and see how far I've come as a reader and as a consumer of books and words. Also, I was reminded of the Andrea Long Chu review in which she says that Maggie Nelson got famous by writing someone else's transition story about this book, which is such a dig, such a burn. Andrea Long Chu is kind of the queen of the dig of literary criticism. And so part of me went in with that mindset thinking, am I going to feel some kind of way about that? Is this not going to have aged well in the world of gender politics? And you know, that's not for me to say. But one thing that was very striking to me is the fact that Maggie Nelson names her son in this book a Native American name, a Native American word. That feels weird to me that two white people did that. She also keeps referring to her family as a tribe, which feels like really weird to me. I am curious if in the interim 10 years or whatever it's been since this book came out, Maggie Nelson has feelings about that. So the thing that didn't age well is not what I expected it to be, but there you go. Okay. We read 3 favorites, and I gotta say, this was a wonderful week. I loved all 3 of these. I feel really good that all of my favorites held up to the test of time. I recommend all 3 of these. It was really fun to revisit them with a new perspective. I think this experiment definitely showed me why people reread. It was a valuable experience. I got more out of these books than I had previously on the first reading. I personally am the Argo. I am shifting and changing. I am not the same person who read these books originally. That being said, will I continue to do a lot of rereading? Probably not. I spent this whole week being like, there's so many other new books I want to read out in the world. And I'm missing out on that, which is dumb. I want to read everything. So I will reread it again, but not often. Those are all my updates. I'm gonna go get on my bike, go to work, and I'm having lunch with my friend Max today. And after work today, I'm getting my booster shot. So pray for me that I feel okay afterward. Love you, nerds. Thanks for hanging out.